there.
Thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. I want to start by giving a brief statement and then we'll allow time for questions at conclusion. I want to start by giving my thanks to Andrew Little. His announcement today and the situation we have found ourselves in is not what anyone expected or wanted. In my time working with Andrew, I know one thing to be true. He is first and foremost loyal to Labour. And I thank him for the support that he gave me to work alongside him and for his incredible work over the last few years. A sentiment for this expressed to him personally. Following Andrew's announcement this morning, I was nominated to be leader of the Labour Party. My nomination was unanimously accepted. Calvin Davis was nominated as deputy, and this too was unanimously accepted. The circumstances may not be what Labour has planned for this campaign, but that has not weakened my resolve or my focus, or my team's resolve. We are determined and steadfast, and I consider myself incredibly lucky to now call myself leader, and equally fortunate to work alongside someone as committed and as talented as Calvin and the rest of our team. This team is about to run the campaign of our lives. Yes, we are an optimistic nation, but when you work at the coalface of politics and in the communities as we do, we know and we see every single day that as a country, we can do better than this. We can be better than this. As a party, we have huge aspirations for New Zealand, a place where everyone has a roof over their head and meaningful work, where education is free and good ideas flourish, where children live surrounded by creativity, not poverty, and where we build a reputation as world leaders on environmental issues. At stake is a chance to build a New Zealand that is better than we found it, and to build a future to look forward to. I will use the next 72 hours alongside Calvin and the team to reflect and take stock of the campaign plan and additional announcements that I would like to add to our program. You will hear more from myself and the team on this in the future, but you will have no doubt over the agenda that Labour is presenting this election. We will be positive, organised and ready. I'm privileged and honoured to be the leader of the Labour Party. I am looking forward to the challenge of the election campaign, where I will get the opportunity to talk to New Zealanders about Labour's plan for a better and fairer New Zealand. This is what Labour has always stood for, and under my leadership, it is what we will continue to stand for. I'm happy to take questions. I'm sure there are many.
Jacinda Ardern, what do you...
Yes, I am married and my team would not have selected me if they didn't believe that also.
What do you believe approaching before?
I've had nigh on 20 years of experience working in and around politics, but I also bring with me a pretty diverse rural background. Granted, I am a young proposition for the party, but this team has worked alongside me for 9 years. They have faith in me, and I absolutely believe I'm up to the job.
Jacinda Ardern, what do you bring that is different to all the other Labour leaders? What do you bring that can actually speak nationally?
You'll see, Paddy, that I will bring a different stamp to this campaign. We certainly have policy ideas out there already that I think answer some of the big issues we're facing in New Zealand around health, housing and education. But alongside that, you will see my personal stamp for the campaign. Relentless positivity will be amongst it, and also a really clear vision for New Zealand. Now, I have a very clear view that we can be a much better country than this. We can prepare ourselves and future generations for a much brighter future, and that's what we'll be doing.
When's the next Little step down?
Sorry, what was that?
When's the next Little everybody's going to resign?
I heard of his decision this morning. We've been in pretty constant conversation, Andrew and I. We were a very close team, but it was this morning meeting with him.
Did you ask him?
No.
What time?
Andrew has had my support, and he will attest to it.
What time?
It was somewhere in the taxi on the way into the airport, I think, Barry. It might have been.
What is your message?
Sorry.
The motorhome extended the olive branch this morning, saying that they've been willing to work with you. Is that something that you consider?
Yeah, look, ultimately, we'll work with the parties that were presented after election day. My focus is on Labor's campaign, no other party's campaign at this point. What I can tell you is that we will be working extremely hard in the Māori seats to retain the ones we have, and in fact, take them.
And Calvin, same question to Calvin.
And I know, hand on heart, that every single member of this gallery knows that I said that in a very genuine way. These are extraordinary circumstances. I have been asked to take on this challenge. I have accepted. I'm confident that I can lead this team successfully to the election.
How do you think regulatory policies like executive gains tax? How radical do you feel?
I'll just take this question in front. How's the team feeling? Oh, we've got 7.5 weeks to election. We're completely focused, but we're also positive. You know, we've been through some tough times together as a family, and look, we will come out of this better as a team. But mostly at the moment, New Zealanders want to hear our vision, not about our internal machinations. So that's what we'll be focused on.
And sometimes families do have fights. Does anyone also try and get that leadership position?
No, totally united. Totally united. And I did feel humbled by the fact that Andrew nominated me to be leader today.
If you don't agree with the policies like the capital gains tax, when you look at the policy platform, how much time do you need to potentially bring in new policies and how radical is it?
Look, I think it's fair to say, and anyone who's watched me in politics over the last 9 years and watched Labor's values as well will know that I'll be very focused on issues of inequality. It's a major concern for me. But I don't imagine that anyone here expects me in the short time that I've had to present policy ideas immediately. I'm going to use the next 72 hours to take stock. But there will be a few different ideas that I'll be talking to the team about.
Obviously, given this quite time frame, are you signalling a steering away from what has been happening so far?
Look, I stand absolutely by the broad vision that we've presented that's based on really important values for us. The idea that everyone deserves a decent roof over their head, a warm, dry home, access to good quality education that our kids can thrive. Those are all things that remain incredibly important to us, but I'll be looking at whether there are ways we can add extra emphasis to those values.
So Labor might go into the election with a tax policy as opposed... Labor might go into the election with a different tax policy as opposed to the promise of just another tax working group?
I want to take 72 hours to take stock, but anyone who looks at my previous agendas will know the kinds of things I'll be focusing on with the team. Well, the MOU. Look, MOU is absolutely in place. I think that transparency with the New Zealand public around who we would intend to work with if the public give us the opportunity and the privilege to be in government. I think that transparency is important and it remains.
Are you
But I want to be very clear. This is a Labour campaign. We'll be focused on Labour's policies and ideas. I do not want to be drawn into conversations about other parties' plans and policies.
Are you prepared to make changes to the tertiary education policy, perhaps to bring it forward or to open up other avenues to make life easier for students before the campaign? Is that a policy that is open for change?
There's no doubt that that's a plight I've really heard. I'm youth adjacent, not quite young myself, but youth adjacent. And so those are issues and concerns that I've heard. But I do want to point out that young people aren't just worried about their own personal circumstances. They're worried about the New Zealand they're growing up in and the New Zealand that they will inherit as well. So, yeah, we will be talking directly to a new generation of voters, but it won't be just about their own personal circumstances.
What do you think Calvin Davis brings to the deputy?
I think Calvin's record, stands strongly in its own right. I feel really privileged to be serving alongside Calvin. I think he's an exceptional member of Parliament, but also an exceptional advocate for his community.
Calvin, will you go back on the party list?
Prison? Will you support a Māori prison?
We've always spoken about Māori values being an integral part and making sure that prisons are good for everybody. and people when they emerge from prison, they're in a better state of mind than when they went in. I think that's the most important.
Who are look, as I was asked at the time, I'm willing to look at any ideas that help us reduce the wasted potential of young people and particularly young Māori in our prison system, and that means the whole full ambit, but particularly with a focus on support for whānau and preventing that loss of potential in the first place.
Kelvin, ko koe te Māori suatahi, kai kōrero Māori ka reki ki tēnei. Siranga he hongo nui tēnei mai?
Ai he whanoretanga nui tēnei Māori, tēnei Māori whānau i hoki. Kia tai tētahi Māori ki tēnei tūranga o te roto te rōpū reika, te mea whai tēnei, tēnei, e kone te rōpū reika o te mōti whānau.
Mā tēnei ka māmā ke mau ki te wiki tōri ai te tai tokera, nā te maka kite atu kano i ngā wahanga toi, haine?
Ko te mōti whānau, me te tai tokera o ku tino whānau. E manapohi ana ma te Māori whānau, iwi Māori whānau e hare mai hei te tuku te Pāti Rei.
Ko rite koe?
Ko reria.
What do you say to people who say, who are Jacinda Ardern and Calvin Davis?
Sorry.
What do you say to people, who are Jacinda Ardern and Calvin Davis? Who, what are you telling people about that for?
A team that's presenting a new vision for the future, and I think one that people can feel hopeful about. But they'll have 7.5 weeks to see us up close and personal. We're going to be running a very, very vibrant campaign alongside the team and trying to give New Zealanders every chance they can to get to know us a little bit better.
What will happen with
There'll be nothing blancmange about this campaign.
What happens to all the campaigners?
I think, as you can appreciate, we've had a short time to think about managing some of those issues, but we'll be looking at that in the next 72 hours.
What will happen?
And working through the plan as we present it.
Do you have the money and the resources for changing the billboards and all the pamphlets?
Yes.
How are you going to do that?
We do.
Will Andrew Little have a senior role in the government if you need one?
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew is a phenomenal member of Parliament. I don't think anyone questions his expertise, certainly not his values. He's worked tirelessly for the Labour Party. I haven't had the chance to have that full conversation with Andrew, but I will certainly be relaying to him that I'm looking forward to having him as a minister in a Labour cabinet.
Will he sit on your front bench while you're in opposition?
I don't expect there to be many changes at all to the lineup of the senior Labour team.
So there would be a front bench spot?
Yes.
Have you spoken to Helen Clark?
I haven't personally spoken to Helen.
What about any of the front bench?
I can't speak on behalf of my front bench. Look, I can tell you lots of Labour members have views and share them liberally.
Do you believe you can credibly form a government with 24%?
Oh, we're not going to come out of the election with 24%, Horan.
You mentioned at the start that no one in Labour wanted to find themselves in this position. How much of this position that you find yourselves in is attributable to the Greens and the materials fraud?
I don't think that's a useful exercise. As a team, we take responsibility for our own campaign, and that's the campaign we're going to be focused on going forward. Now, I'm not interested in the relative effect of other parties. I'm focused on what we present as a Labour Party to the public. That's what they're voting on.
Can you personally, do you have the personal attributes to, as Prime Minister, compile a government that includes both the Greens, Winston Peters and the Labour Party? Could you compile it and manage it?
I used to be the president of an international youth organisation that had members from Lebanon, Palestine and Israel. I think I can do this. It might surprise you, but we haven't had conversations about anything after the next 8 weeks. It's quite a busy period. There's no plan B. We are focused on the election.
Ms Ardern, what are you going to do to raise Labour's vote in the polls above 24%? Will there be changes in policy, or is it just a new lick of paint?
Yeah, look, I don't think I've been described as a new lick of paint before. I think as I've made clear, there's some core elements of our campaign that we absolutely stand by because they're reflecting the issues that New Zealanders have told us are important to them. Health, mental health, water quality, housing, education. So you'll see those as consistent themes in our campaign. But you'll also see Calvin and I stamp on that campaign too. A vision that accepts that actually as New Zealanders we are pretty optimistic, but we believe we can be better than this. That we will present a different vision, and it will be a very positive one.
Will the policy, the retirement age policy of keeping it at 65, will that stay until the election?
Yeah, look, Patty, as I've said, I want to take 72 hours to take stock of where we are. You'll hear more from us down the track, but I'm not going to do that within 2 hours of having taken over a Labour leadership.
Do you think you can credibly lead a government if Labour's on 24 or thereabouts?
Yes. Would you like to tell me why you don't think I can?
No, it was a question, it wasn't an accusation. You don't want to say why you're so defensive?
That our means the timing of it, I mean, you must really have it so close to the election. Are you going to be able to turn it around?
Yeah, there is no doubt. Anyone looking at this situation knows that I have big shoes to fill, an enormous job I've just taken on, but I'm ready for it. You know? So bring on 23 September.
Have you had a chance before you move to family?
No. No, Mum and Dad are going to get a surprise and do it.
This is a rather unusual situation as a party that begins to change leadership, because previously the party leadership from unions, so how do you think this change will sit with the wider party leadership?
Yeah, I think the party will absolutely accept that with such proximity to the election campaign, that we should be focused on one thing and one thing alone, and that is leading our party and our amazing volunteers and those voters who believe in us confidently into the election. So the idea absolutely needs to be to absolutely minimise the internal process and focus on the campaign.
If you don't win the election, will you stay on as leader?
There is no plan B.
Calvin, could you work in a coalition with the Maori Party?
If the Māori Party is still standing after the election, they'll have to up their game if they want to work with us.
So that's a no. Is it the same? Is it the same position as? Is it the same position as under Andrew Little? So is your position the same as it was under Andrew Little?
Oh, they'll have to up their game if they want to work with us, but you know, we're open to anything after the election. Being Parliament, the first instance, the Māori Housing Network's built, got 11 houses up to code of compliance for $30-something million.
What you see here is front bench, but Nanaya unfortunately is leaving currently, so she's not with us, but this is our front bench.
Kelvin Davis, can I just ask?
National's been cruising along 45% plus for 9 years now. What makes you think in the next 6 weeks you can change that?
Well, look, I've even heard Bill English say that he doesn't believe that his team can be complacent, and I would agree with that.
What is your message to Bill English, actually? What is your message to Bill English?
Don't be complacent.
Kelvin, can I just ask?
No.
Kelvin Davis, when?
Sorry?
Last night I got a text when I woke up at 4:30 this morning saying I need to be on a plane in Kitty in about 2 hours, so which was the quickest shower of my life. I got to Kitty on time.
So Kelvin, when were you asked?
And within the speed limit.
When were you asked, Kelvin, to become the deputy? When did you first hear about this? And when were you asked?
At caucus this morning when we moved through the process.
You had no conversations before caucus this morning?
Well, caucus members have been asking what's going on in the last 12 hours of this, but at this stage, at that stage, this time yesterday I was talking about Labour, Andrew Little Labour government.
So Calvin
I
Davis,
want
will
to be
you,
absolutely clear that the decision that Andrew made was Andrew's decision.
will you stay on the list, will you stay off the list, Calvin Davis, or will you come on the list now that you are deputy leader?
Yeah, that's a technical issue that I wasn't aware of, to be honest. And we'll just have to
We've got a
work through that.
constitution.
Yeah, so you're now on the list, aren't you?
We've worked through what the constitution requires, but we'll work through that.
But do you want to stay off it?
Like Jacinda said, that's something that the party has to work through. So, it'll be what it'll be.
Ms Ardern, you could be seeing a former government might have worked with Winston Peters. What's your message to him as Labor leader?
Like single malts. Look, I mean, it's true. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that we'll find our common ground. You won't hear a lot of conversation about that from us in the election campaign. We're going to be focused on Labor, and our clear message to voters is that if they want some assurance that National won't be in charge after the election, then the surest way to guarantee that is a vote with Labor. And so that's the message we have for voters. If the voters present something different to us, then we'll work with that. But I'm sure we'll find common ground if and when we're required to do that.
Why was Calvin chosen for deputy?
Calvin was nominated by Grant Robertson to take on the job, and there was clear support, unanimous support in the caucus for Calvin to take on that role. I mean, Calvin is one of our best supporters, and I think it's not even a question whether or not he deserves the role. I think it would be absolutely fantastic.
Ms Ardern, are you ready for the extra level of scrutiny, pressure that comes with being Prime Minister?
Yeah. Look, I mean, there's not much that compares to that role, and all of us are untested until we have the opportunity to be trialled for something like that. But what I would say is I came into Parliament at 28 years of age. In lots of ways, I've had to learn and grow on the job, and I think I've demonstrated that I'm confident, and that I present a real difference for New Zealanders, and a new vision as well on behalf of the Labour Party. So I'm willing to take on that challenge. I'm ready to take on that challenge, and I'm excited about the campaign.
But you said that we don't really want this role, so with some reservation that
Look, everyone knows that I've just accepted with short notice the worst job in politics. But I also welcome this job. It is an enormous privilege to be the leader of the New Zealand Labour Party. There is no doubt being in opposition is hard. That's why I'm using the next 8 weeks to get our team out of it.
Stuart Nash, you said yesterday you thought they would be doing if we change leaders as opposed to the election. So are you still thinking?
Stuart already has acknowledged to me that he was wrong.
Jacinda, you keep talking about a new vision. What is your vision?
Yeah, I think what you'll hear from us is, manifest by some of the ideas that we'll present, is that I'm very mindful that the next generation is about to inherit a New Zealand that isn't better than what their parents experienced. And so our focus will be about bringing fairness back into New Zealand. We'll have a focus on equality and inequality. But all of that, as I say, I want to use some of our ideas to do the talking, but I want to take stock for a bit. What will be clear to people, though, is it is a generational difference. All right, I think it's great. Thank you.